Discovery. Also, the foreboding organ music and a minor key welcoming this logo now feels more depressingly fitting than ever. It was a dark and stormy night. Now, Burton does it better than most, but it's still cliche as hell. Also, it appears to be raining blood, which sets the tone, but is nevertheless odd. Sure, you can let us know what kind of movie we're in for through 2.5 minutes of creepy animation suffused with blood and an ominous score, or, to save us all some time, you could just do this. Movie opens up on a ship's penis penetrating the fog. Why is this boner? That looks an awful lot like a completed Tower Bridge, which doesn't make a lot of sense. This movie is supposed to be taking place in the mid-1800s. Construction on Tower Bridge didn't even start until 1886. Jamie Campbell Bower's skin is not sparkling in this scene. Anthony sings, "From the Dardanelles to the mountains of Peru," and continent hopping should never be allowed in a song. If I'm trying to visualize your journey, I now have to think about what airport you went to, what flight you took, and how long the flight was. It's exhausting being me. Tim Burton movie contains a Johnny Depp cliche. Todd believes Anthony's love of London comes from naivete and a lack of life experience. While possibly true, there's no guarantee that Anthony will suffer in the same ways Todd has, so why not let the kid be happy? I'm sure the crushing reality that life will eventually eat him up and shit him out as a miserable mess of disappointment will come soon enough.
Is everything all right, Mr. Todd?
Todd will now song's-position his backstory that he apparently didn't hint at once during the almost 2 weeks it would have taken to get from Botany Bay, Australia to London, England. As far as this movie is concerned, Anthony just picked up an escaped prisoner and didn't think any follow-up questions were necessary. And this naive bastard somehow ends up outliving almost everyone else in the story.
On these once familiar streets, I feel shadows everywhere.
Shadows?
Ghosts.
Then why didn't you just f***ing say ghosts? Who says shadows when they mean ghosts? This discount Annabelle staring directly into the camera.
Will I see you again?
You might find me if you like. Around Fleet Street, I wouldn't wonder.
Well, this ends up being true, but how does Todd know he's going to be able to set up shop in Fleet Street? Why would he assume his room above Mrs. Lovett's pie shop would still be available after 15 years? We arrive at Mrs. Lovett's at the same time as Todd, but we clearly took a different route because, unlike us, he doesn't seem to be covered in his own vomit after a dizzying flight through the back alleys of 1800s London. Mrs. Lovett sings, "Did you come here for a pie, sir?" And in my head, that's a silly question, since that's clearly all you sell here food-wise. But then again, Todd isn't actually here for a pie, so Mrs. Lovett is somehow right to question him, and that makes me even more irritated. If business is so poor, why is she giving a pie and ale free of charge to the one customer that has walked in? If the pies are so bad, a free sample is hardly going to encourage him to bring his family and friends. Also, how does Mrs. Lovett even still have a pie shop to open if no one wants to eat there?
You got room over the shop, haven't you? Times are so hard once you rent it out.
Putting aside the good fortune that his space is still available, why would Todd even want to base himself here? If the plan is to seek revenge on Judge Turpin, isn't keeping his old profession and his old barber shop needlessly risky?
Something happened up there. Something not very nice.
But still nice enough to exposit to you in song!
Parker, his name was. Benjamin Parker.
Oh, this is crime.
Lovett will now go on to sing about the fate of Todd's wife, which is, of course, the information he actually wants, but is in no way what he just asked for. So Judge Turpin's plan was to drag Lucy to his house to apologize for sending her husband to jail, only to, surprise, you're at a costume ball now. Now you'll have no choice but to get drunk and I will sexually assault you in front of all these partygoers. Why is that a plan? Why does that work?
It's Todd now. Sweeney Todd.
Close enough. Roll credits. The baby's crib is still there. I hate to harp on it, but this place has literally been untouched and unrented for 15 years in London. Okay, I'm sure the housing market wasn't quite as ludicrous in the 1800s, but I'm sure it was still pretty lucrative. Why is Mrs. Lovett struggling with her meat pies when she has an unrented flat above her, or at the very least, a haunted house attraction for dumb tourists?
When they came for the guide,
Yeah, sorry about your poison wife and stolen kit, but look, I saved your pretty knives.
could have sold them, but I didn't.
I mean, why didn't she? Lovett has a failing business, and 6 feet above her is a box of silver she could easily sell. Did she decide to keep them just on the off chance she could turn Barker's Return into a Broadway hit? Sniffing your tenants without consent. Sewing. Over 1 million people in 1800s London, and of course, Vecna here manages to Romeo and Juliet his way into the only one that happens to be Todd's daughter. I hate to bring pesky things like logic into these scenes, but here we have Joanna singing to her pet bird, asking how it finds enough joy to sing when it's as trapped as she is, and then she asks it to teach her how to sing. I don't care if it's ironic, it's bloody confusing. Jesus, is this a Sweeney Todd adaptation or a Peeping Tom adaptation? There's almost more peeping in this movie than there is throat cutting. Joanna sings, "If I cannot fly, let me sing," and I wonder why no one ever wants to meet in the middle. Like, maybe you can't fly or sing, but you could be one hell of a cross-stitcher.
Could you tell me whose house this is?
So, to summarize, in the space of a few weeks, Anthony here has bumped into Benjamin Barker while sailing in Australia, fell in love with Joanna Barker while roaming the streets of London, and received advice from Mrs. Barker a few minutes later. This guy is a goddamn Barker magnet. It's Anthony's turn for a sing-song now, and he decides to share how in love he is with a 15-year-old that he's known for less than 15 minutes. But we're meant to be fine with this because she threw a slight smile at him. Based on the fact that the lyric Anthony is currently singing is "I'll steal you, Joanna," and Joanna is a woman Anthony has never actually met in person, this feels more like a vow to kidnap. I'm starting to find myself on Judge Turpin's side, which is a side I prefer not to be on, Anthony.
The catamites of Greece, the harlots of India.
Stroking your books, although based on the subject matter of most of them, maybe I shouldn't find that odd. And now Anthony continues his song from earlier and is singing "I Am in the Dark Beside You." I think this was the original "Every Breath You Take," as in the song that everyone thinks is sweet until you take a closer look at the lyrics. Going to the effort of printing these banners only to cover them with tables. The kid pulls his hat off to show that the elixir worked on him, but why was he even using an elixir for hair growth? Did a lot of kids in the 1800s suffer from male pattern baldness? Giving out free samples is a great idea to spread word of mouth, if the product works, that is. Giving out samples of something that's bullshit just guarantees no one else is going to come and buy it either. Good luck trying to placebo affect your way into a full head of hair. Also, Todd is about to point out it smells like urine, so if the remedy itself is bullshit, why not at least make it smell like nice bullshit? Sudden Borat, Julianne Jean Gerard.
The fastest, smoothest shave is the winner.
Call me unadventurous, but speed is not a stipulation I ever put upon an individual with a sharp blade on my face. You, sir or madam, can take as long as you please if it means I leave your chair with the same amount of holes I arrived with.
The winner is Todd.
What's more impressive than the quick shave is that Todd also managed to get no shaving cream on the blade. Also, part of the criteria of the bet was who gave the smoothest shave. The judging shouldn't start until both men are done.
Congratulations, Mr. Todd.
Whoa, sudden and never to return Anthony Head.
And I can guarantee to give you without a penny's charge the closest shave you will ever know.
Okay, if I'm one of the sketchiest assholes in London town and a barber with the complexion and demeanor of an irritated corpse offers me a free shave and does it in this tone of voice, I am not taking him up on the offer, and I am probably growing a beard just to be safe. Snapey. How's the peeping? Snapey. Just want to point out again, these two have never met. At least sneak out for some coffee before giving the boy your key, Joanna.
Aren't you thinking nothing else? Always brooding away on your wrongs. What happened heaven knows how many years ago.
Oh, you mean that time a bastard judge sent him to an Australian prison for 15 years for a crime he didn't commit so that said judge could abuse his wife, push her to suicide, and then kidnap his daughter? That little thing? I'll admit I don't have a great grasp on romance, but belittling genuine trauma does not feel like a successful seduction technique.
Let him bring her here. And then, since you're so hot for a little, that's the throat to slit, my dear.
Considering how quickly attached Mrs. Lovett gets to Toby, I'm a little shocked she's so easily willing to have Todd kill Anthony, who seems to be just as innocent and has done absolutely nothing to no one.
Get your nice lovely pie.
That has been sitting in this room cooling down for God knows how long and has probably developed more than enough bacteria to kill you. Enjoy!
I remember these. And how could I ever forget you, Mr. Barker?
My God, does everyone Todd meets have some sort of backstory that links them together? Todd managed to unknowingly rip off a kid that worked for him 2 decades ago and is one of the few people with specific knowledge to prove who he is. Also, Pirelli shouldn't have needed the razors to identify Todd, but he should have recognized him because Todd looks almost exactly like he did 15 years ago. So why doesn't everyone already know he's actually Benjamin Barker? It only took Mrs. Lovett a couple of minutes. Todd clearly strikes down with the kettle, but somehow this results in Davy acting like he's received an uppercut. Water spills out of the kettle when it hits the ground, but it wasn't spilling out when Todd was swinging it to kill Pirelli. Todd got Pirelli's body in the trunk, cleaned up all the blood, and brewed himself a new kettle in the time it took Toby to get up here, which was less than a minute after the murder occurred.
I therefore sentence you to hang by the neck until you're dead.
In case you confused Judge Turpin for one of the good guys.
In order to shield her from the evils of this world, I have decided to marry my dear Joanna.
Aww.
Strangely, when I offered myself to her, she showed a certain reluctance.
I get that Judge Turpin is full of himself, but he's shown enough intelligence to not be surprised that Joanna isn't 100% into him.
His name is Todd, my lord, and he is the very last word in Barber.
And I can confidently claim this because of my extensive research into the barbering landscape of London, and not just because I saw him shave a man faster than a crook with a bad Italian accent in a random street competition.
You're barking mad. Killing a man what done you no harm?
Says the woman who just moments ago suggested to Todd that he kill Anthony later that evening. This is the second goddamn time that Todd has just so happened to be brooding at this tiny window at the perfect time to see an incoming visitor. First off, it was Davy, now Turpin. It's even more convenient this time, though, because if Todd doesn't spot him first, Turpin would have caught him with a bloody sleeve, and this time a decent reason to send him to Australia.
Mr. Todd.
I'm going to take back the kind of remark I made earlier about Judge Turpin's intelligence, because it is maddening he doesn't realize this is Benjamin Barker. Not only did Mrs. Lovett and Pirelli figure it out pretty quickly, but Turpin is at the location that Barker used to operate out of, and the man standing in front of him looks like a 15-year-older version of Barker. Really can't sin this enough to show how fucking ludicrous this plot point is, but 100 sins will do for now. Todd has been gifted the man who ruined his life, and instead of immediately killing him, he dicks around for 3 minutes, giving him an actual fucking shave. Look, this song is great, but it's not missing out on killing the man who stole your family great.
I'm pretty as a rosebud.
Pretty as a mother.
What was that?
Oh, don't worry. That was just something alarming enough to raise a red flag, but not enough for you to act on, apparently.
I've seen Joanna and she said she'd leave with me tonight.
Ignoring the convenience that Judge Turpin just happens to be here at this moment, barging in and startling someone who uses a blade for a living is a pretty shitty idea, Anthony. Also, holy shit, how convenient is it that Judge Turpin happens to be here as Anthony barges in with the most incriminating sentence he could possibly open with. It's not like Turpin is here a lot. He came here on a fucking whim. Sweeney Todd sings, "In the meantime, I'll practice on less honorable throats," and man, this is a quick ascension from a simple revenge to just fucking murdering anyone who comes into his shop. This movie goes from 1 to 11 faster than Nigel's guitar amp.
Here we are. Hot out of the oven.
But apparently still cold enough to handle by hand. Mrs. Lovett sings, "No, you see, the trouble with poet is how do you know it's deceased, and the sin, as always, is poet shaming." Okay, let's do it. Let's talk about the Todd Lovett business model here. Target lawyers, priests, and other assorted nuisances to society, but apparently only the ones that won't be missed. Then Wallace and Gromit the fuck out of Todd's barber chair so that he can send bodies down to a cellar where Lovett can dispose of the evidence in pies and turn a profit in the process. Surely it isn't going to be difficult to see a pattern of people entering Todd's barber shop and never exiting. And why take the risk? Isn't he better off biding his time until another way to get back at Judge Turpin presents itself? You know, like what actually ends up happening? If she's being held captive, I really have to wonder how she managed to get a hold of a suitcase to aid her escape. Sure is handy that Australian prisons in the 1800s offered mechanical engineering courses, because I have no fucking clue how Todd has the skills to make this impressive chair contraption. I mean, this one pedal is doing a lot of work. It has to open this hatch, tip the chair, get the footrest to push the body down the tunnel, open the second hatch, return the chair to its original position, and then close both hatches. I can't even set a fucking mousetrap. Anthony's entire character arc is being super creepy about a girl he's never officially met and barging into places at the most inconvenient times. Great stuff. He's doing it by the fucking window. Also, how are the bodies getting to the cellar? From this external shot, we can see that the chair is directly above Mrs. Lovett's kitchen storefront abattoir, but somehow the bodies seem to skip it and end up beneath the pie shop. Okay, maybe the tunnel is on a slope and that allows it to bypass the kitchen, but the chair is very close to the edge of the building, so the bodies would also have to round at least one corner. So unless Todd has managed to construct a series of bends into this tunnel that we never see and don't compromise the building itself, I have no idea how the bodies are getting into their final resting place. And don't you fucking say it's mirrors or some shit, because I will put you in a pie. I want to know how this grand reopening managed to gather so many people. Well, at least a name change. With the Lovett name being tied to the worst pies in the world, how the hell has she managed to convince everyone that anything has changed? Also, everyone seems to be having a great time and no one appears to be complaining that all these pies taste like chicken. Toby is singing about how good the smells are outside the restaurant, which is odd because Beetle comes by shortly after that to check on the premises because so many people have complained about the horrible smell coming out of the chimney at night.
And since we're careful to pick and choose strangers, people that won't be missed, who's going to catch on?
What are they basing that on? Are they really researching each person before they invite them into Sweeney Todd's chair? These guys all look pretty respectable, so are we supposed to believe that no one is going to miss any of them? Damn it, she bragged about cooking the goddamn priest earlier. Helena Bonham Carter is not kissing my cheek in this scene. 2 minutes of Mrs. Lovett fantasizing about married life at the seaside with Mr. Todd while ignoring the complete fantasy that England would ever have weather nice enough to enjoy said seaside. Also, I find it very strange that in Mrs. Lovett's fantasy, Sweeney Todd is still so hesitant with her.
Life is really life, my dear.
Platitudes, especially the redundantly obvious ones.
I shall set you up as a wig maker's apprentice. That'll gain you access. And then you take her.
Okay, this isn't the dumbest villain's plan I've ever heard, but it does seem unnecessary. Surely it's going to take time and influence to set up Anthony, with no wig-making experience at all, as a wig-maker's apprentice. Wouldn't it be easier for Todd himself to offer free haircuts to the patients at Bedlam since he's already a barber? I mean, he's no more likely to be recognized than Anthony is. I'm guessing this is Todd's personal stamp, but since he only pretends to stamp the letter, I guess we'll never know.
Go to Old Bailey, find Judge Turpin.
You put that into his hands.
How the fuck does Todd expect a scruffy-looking child to get within 100 feet of one of the most infamous judges in London?
You know there's nothing I wouldn't do for you.
Skip!
Now, Where shall I cut?
I'm not going to pretend to remember my days as a wig maker, but I'm pretty sure there's a specific way to cut their hair to make sure you get what you need for wigging. So why is Mr. Fogg doing the cutting instead of the apprentice? It definitely seems odd that even in the 1800s, an insane asylum wouldn't have some process for checking visitors for contraband, sharp objects, or f***ing firearms.
Now, I leave you to the mercy of your children.
If it's this easy, then why haven't the inmates attacked before tonight? Toby takes the tiniest bite out of this pie and somehow manages to find a perfectly intact fingertip that has managed to survive the meat grinder. Okay, maybe it somehow skipped the grinder and went straight into the pie, but it still would have had to survive being baked. Have you ever baked a finger? It does not do well. Or so I'm told. Holy shit, so there aren't even any bends in this tunnel after all? So this hole does go straight down from Todd's chair and through the kitchen? Why is this portal technology that Todd stole from the Aperture Science guys not a bigger part of this plot?
So we run away and then all our dreams come true.
What dreams? This is literally the first time you've met where you haven't been separated by a wall and a 2-story drop. Wait a second. In every other scene, the pedal was on the other side of the chair. When and why did he install this pedal that is apparently just to control the trap door?
Thank heavens, too. She has seen me and her ways.
She has?
But when Anthony burst in on Todd and Turpin earlier, he clearly knew who Todd was, and even mentioned the plan to kidnap Joanna. Why is Turpin so ready to trust Todd?
How about a shave?
Despite being caught once before, Todd will still dick around with the Barber facade for way longer than his murder boner should have allowed him to. I've rewatched this scene multiple times, so you don't have to. So trust me when I say Turpin's neck should be an absolute mess after all of this stabbing and be far more flappy than the neat incision we see here. Judge Turpin survives this. Well, at least long enough to grab Mrs. Lovett's leg.
You knew she lived. You lied to me.
Lovett will defend herself by saying she didn't technically lie because she never said Lucy died, just that she poisoned herself. Did Lovett really think that she was going to get off on a technicality here? Okay, it's a tragic ending where Mrs. Lovett is killed by the man she loves. Todd accidentally kills the woman he loves, and the poor orphan boy who loses the only mother he loved is turned into a murderer. But it's not all doom and gloom. At least we have Anthony and Joanna's deep and meaningful relationship that received a full 10 minutes of screen time to flourish, and all its cliche only happens like this in the movie's beauty. Yay!
I don't want to be a pie. I don't like gravy.
Well, I can't say the years have been particularly kind to you, Mr. Barker.
No. Not Barker. That man is dead.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
King in the castle, king in the castle. Have a chair, I have a chair.
All this talking about your feelings stuff is really rather horny. If there's any chance of a quick tug while you stick your finger up my ass, me and my would be very, very grateful.
And when Alexander saw the breadth of his domain, he wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. Benefits of a classical education. In order to shield her from the evils of this world, I have decided to marry my dear Joanna.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
We got a body mouldering away upstairs. Now, what do you intend we should do about that then?
Why is the rum always gone? The something's connected to the red thing. The red thing's connected to my wristwatch. Uh-oh.
Little did he realize, the world was to hear more from the phantom raspberry blower of old London town.